Hi, Tom, can you hear me?
Yeah, can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, perfect. So I think we'll just give it maybe 5 minutes.
Yeah, no, just let everybody jump on and join.
Yeah. Just see something. Yes. Yeah, we should have about hopefully 20 people.
Cool.
Click record. So thanks for joining us this morning. It's really great that you're able to make some time and just have a chat with us and just listen to what we have to say about impact measurement, from economic change point of view and from social suite point of view. So I guess just as by way of introduction, my name is Conway Buckle. I'm the head of business development from economic change, and I've got Tom on the line from social suite, who's the business development manager for social suite as well. So thanks for making some time to join us this morning. Hi, Tom, are you there?
Yeah, hi everyone. So Tom from Social Suite, Business Development Manager, as Conway just said. Yeah, obviously really excited to be partnered up with economic change, and it's a really good opportunity to give you guys a good insight, in regards to a technology solution and how it can sort of pair up with the economic change offering as well.
Perfect, thank you. I just want to check that you guys can see my screen. There we go. Can you see that, Tom?
Yep, crystal clear.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. So I guess I haven't put an agenda slide in here, but just I want to spend a bit of time talking about, for those who aren't too familiar with economic change, talking about economic change and our focus specifically on the area of impact measurement, and then Tom is going to do a bit of discussing around social suite, some of the kind of use cases where impact measurement and the scenarios really, I guess, where impact measurement comes into play, and then Tom's going to talk a bit more about some of the customers they've been working with the background of the company as well, and then Tom is going to show us a high-level demo, I guess, of what social suite impact measurement tool looks like. So without further ado, I'm just going to jump into it. So economic change, if you're not familiar with us, we've been around for about 13 years now, providing a range of sort of management consultancy services, as well as being a partner with Salesforce.com and a few other key ecosystem partners like Social Suite. And I think one of the main focuses for us has always been on, there's pictures of us, there we go, in case you're wondering who we were. I guess one of the main focuses for us from a consultancy side is working around impact measurement, understanding how important that is to organizations to be able to track the impact that they're having on the community, on service users they're working with. We focus primarily on non-profit organizations and also now increasingly in the education space. It's always about you're doing as an organization, you're doing a lot of activity, but are you able to track and measure that impact for a variety of different reasons, which I think Tom will also expand on later. But it's a key part of some of the solutions that we offer. We look at loads of different areas, but one of the key ones is impact and service delivery. And that's always one of the critical pieces that comes up when dealing with any organization who's focused, on any specific type of service that they're offering, whether it's a large organization or a small organization, again, for a variety of different reasons. So the way we see a successful partnership with any organizations across a couple of different areas, yes, we are a technology partner with the likes of Salesforce and with Social Suite and a few others, but with equally as important is having really robust conversations with organizations and doing a lot of work around strategy. Impact measurement is key. Of how do we define your performance? How do we take the data that you have in the CRM that you're using, and all the activities that your staff and volunteers, whoever it might be, are engaged with, and what do we do with that information? How do we really get maximum value out of that? And it's obviously we want to see organizations being able to increase their impact, but there's also sort of regulatory type requirements where you have to be going back to funders, have to be going back to trustees and so on. So it's a really critical part of a lot of the work that we have done and we will continue to do. And then another area that we look at a lot at is change management, how to, we spend a lot of time with organizations on strategy, looking at impact measurement frameworks, theories of change, looking at the technology stack that goes along with that, but how do we manage all of that from a change management perspective to make sure that the solutions that we're putting in place are being adopted and there's actually some viable, tangible results that we can measure. So in a way, almost impact measurement really spreads across all of that, the impact of the technology on internal staff and on service users. The way I said, even on change management, what is the impact on service users and on staff through adopting the new processes, having a clearly defined impact measurement framework, and how does it impact the strategy as well? So it's a critical part of all of these different elements as we see it. We've done a lot of work in this space for a number of years. Economic change, before we even became a technology partner, we started off as I say, a management consultancy. And as we became a partner with Salesforce, we've done a lot of solutions for organizations where we build out a impact measurement specific solution within the CRM. But our experience as a technology partner, we would always advise organizations to look at buying a solution, especially something that's natively built on Salesforce platform like Social Suite, rather looking at something that comes as a package, which you can just install into Salesforce, and it's got all of those configurations in place already. It's already leveraging the power of the Salesforce platform to things like Einstein Analytics, the dashboarding, reporting, all of that stuff. So we got into a conversation with Social Suite, who's really a leader in this space, based out in Australia, and I'm sure Tom will give you a bit more of a background, but really working very closely with Salesforce, not only in the non-profit space, but on the commercial space as well, with a variety of different types of organizations and businesses, and has clients across the world, really, obviously starting out originally in Asia Pac, but extending into Americas and into Europe. So we were fortunate enough to start speaking to the guys at Social Suite, Tom and the rest of them, about how we can introduce this amazing product into the UK. So we're very happy to be having that relationship and to be able to start to jointly do things like this webinar today. So I'm going to hand it over to Tom, and maybe Tom can give us a bit of more background to Social Suite, and then he can talk a bit about some of the customers and so on that he's been working with.
Yeah, thanks, Conway, and thank you everyone for taking the time out. Just to give you sort of a bit of background in regards to Social Suite as an organization, we've been around now for about 7 years, and as Conway mentioned, we're based here in Melbourne, in Australia, and essentially we've developed an end-to-end impact measurement platform. As Conway also mentioned, is that we are a Salesforce ISV partner. So we developed the platform that sits effectively as a managed package on the Salesforce.com platform. We have around 60 clients currently across the world, and that ranges in various different sectors, whether that be small to larger not-for-profits, We're seeing corporate organizations as well as larger philanthropic utilizing Social Suite today as well. But essentially, just to give a bit of background as to where the platform was born, one of our co-founders, Dr. Clara Ong, who was an impact and obviously still is an impact consultant, she was working in the resource sector across in Western Australia, and she was doing a lot of work with the likes of BHPs and Chevrons in the mining boom that were, deploying close to $50 million into local mining communities, and she had the tough job of trying to measure impact, and a lot of disparate sources, a lot of paper-based surveys, a lot of surveying tools, and then trying to aggregate all of that data into Excel spreadsheets to make something meaningful, to be able to tell a story. And essentially, the platform was born from there. That must be a simpler process that's more streamlined with a lot more rigor in order to streamline that process for organizations. But essentially, our mission as an organization is to help other organizations embrace technology to be able to report on impact as effectively as they do financial performance as well. So if you wouldn't mind just flicking across to the next slide, Conway. Perfect. So I know that we just touched on a few points, but I just want to cover I guess a few common areas in what we see when speaking to organizations as to why do they actually want to measure impact? What's the real drivers behind wanting or even needing to do that? And that can come from various different ways. And first of all, it's having that internal drive to want to know the outcomes that the programs and services they're delivering are actually having on their beneficiaries or people being affected from those services. A lot of organizations, are aware of the good work they're doing. A lot of it, when trying to prove that, is very anecdotal. So, a lot of organizations need that systematic or calculated approach in order to be able to prove that factual data around the outcomes they're doing, and that can help with the learnings internally to help with their own service delivery. Essentially, the platform as well can save staff a lot of time. As I briefly mentioned before, that we find that a lot of organizations that are currently trying to measure impact are using a lot of disparate sources, the paper-based surveys, SurveyMonkey, aggregation into Excel. It's a very, very time-consuming and cumbersome process from the individual in the organization's perspective. They're spending hours, days, weeks inputting data manually, and then trying to make sense of that within some complex Excel spreadsheets. And that's usually at the end of a program cycle, which sort of leads on to the next point about being able to quickly identify when an initiative isn't necessarily working. And that's by having real-time insights. And Social Suite can essentially give you those real-time insights in visual dashboards. So rather than the end of a program or a funding cycle, doing the analysis and realizing that a particular program hasn't had the desired impact, you can adjust the programs accordingly to ensure that you're having maximum impact across all the services that you deliver as well. Another thing that we do encourage with all the organizations we work with here at Social Suite is not just necessarily for the dashboards to be able to be used from an upper management perspective, but also to be able to aggregate that down to the staff on the frontline level. This can help for a number of reasons. Number one, it gets their buy-in for having to actually go through the process of that frontline data collection, but obviously providing the good feedback of the work, the great work that they are doing. As I said, 9 times out of 10 organizations are aware of that, but being able to show that in a visual way, in a factual manner, just ensures that they have a better sense of purpose, and it just helps with the staff morale from that perspective. In regards to the Social Suite platform, it can also be configured to gather data not just from the individual beneficiary themselves, but from also the stakeholders related to that beneficiary as well. So that can create a bit of a 360 view and help validate that beneficiary data. So if you're collecting potentially data from a case manager, or it could be a parent about the beneficiary, it can just help validate that and create a bit of a better picture and a story around that as well. But essentially, the ultimate reason that organizations go through the process of measuring impact is to be able to use the reports to secure, current funding. We're seeing it from ever-pressing from other government bodies, or whether it be, philanthropic funds or funders. They're asking organizations to be able to prove their impact more and more. So having those dashboards in real time, being able to extract them at any point, can really strongly support those grant applications, or even be used in a lot of cases to go out and secure additional funding by demonstrating to organizations the real granular impact that you're actually having on the ground as well. So you mind flicking across to the next slide, Conway?
Sure. Bit of a delay, I think, when I do that.
Not to worry. So when we look at the Social Suite platform, as I say, it is end-to-end. And what we mean by that is that it's not just the representation of that data, but it's also the collection of that data as well. But even in the first instance, it's about designing or embedding those set of metrics. So the Social Suite platform is actually framework agnostic, and we take a very, neutral stance when it comes to what organizations should be measuring, what are the outcomes, how they should be measuring it, who they're collecting data from. And that's, one of the strong benefits of partnering up with the likes of Economic Change, because they can bridge that gap to actually develop that theory of change in the set of metrics. But the Social Suite platform then is agnostic to be able to absorb any of the metrics that are actually embedded into the platform initially. Next slide, Conway. Perfect. So once the metrics is embedded into the platform, an organization then needs to actually go out and collect that data. Rather using third-party surveying tools or using those paper-based surveys, it's actually inbuilt into Social Suite as a full survey builder. And there's also a suite of tools that allows the organization to then go out and capture that data. So whether that be through SMS, whether it be through email links, whether that be through social media streams. And we also have a mobile app as well, which works online and offline. So, if your organization is working and you maybe have case managers or therapists that, they're collecting the data on that one-on-one basis, the data can be then collected through the mobile app, and then that syncs straight into Social Suite in real time. You just flick across to the next slide. Perfect. So as that data has been submitted, whether that be through the email survey links, SMS, the tablet, it then feeds into these dashboards in real time. So this is where organizations can get a real-time view of impact and be able to make those adjustments, potentially if something's not having the desired impact that they may need to do as well. But we'll go through all this in a demonstration. We'll show you how the dashboards and how they work intuitively. But essentially, as I mentioned earlier, that we're working with various different sectors when it comes into impact measurement. Obviously, our bread and butter and the organizations that we've worked with since early 2014 have been the not-for-profits or the change makers, the ones that are delivering the services on the ground, and they want to get the visibility of the impact of what their programs are actually having on the individuals. We're then working with a lot of sort of consultancy firms and other organizations that have actually developed their own set of metrics, which we call in this term experts. So that's a theory of change, a framework, whatever you would like to call it. They've developed that. We've embedded that into Social Suite, and in some cases they actually house their framework on our marketplace as well. So if there's any other organizations in similar sectors that are looking for that particular framework, that's an option that they could select that framework and place that across their programs and activities and be able to measure that in line with those metrics. And then the third sector, which we've seen a lot of interest and traction in certainly over the last couple of years, is the philanthropic fund and foundation sector. Obviously, they're deploying a lot of capital to a number of different organizations, and they're wanting just to get that overarching view of impact, not just at each individual organization or grantee level, but to be able to roll that information up and aggregate that to see the overall impact as a funder in whole as well. So we'll just go on to the next slide. Obviously, this gives a bit of an overview of certain organizations that we're working with currently. And first of all, I'd just sort of like to touch on the YMCA. We've been doing a lot of work with them for a number of years. And this is a really interesting project for a couple of reasons that we've got the feedback from them and what they've actually been able to do with the impact reports produced through Social Suite. So they run a lot of recidivism programs in particular, trying to get reoffenders into effectively into jobs and into work to prevent them from reoffending. There's various different ways as to how they go about that. One insight that they got, they were actually deploying, I think it was close to 50,000 Aussie dollars towards gym memberships for a lot of young offenders to sort of focus their mind on something else. And from the data that was collected through Social Suite, they were able to see very, very quickly after a matter of 3 months that nobody was actually utilizing the gym memberships. So rather than 3 years down the track reviewing and realizing that the gym memberships hadn't been used, and $150,000 is obviously down the drain effectively, they were quickly able to stop deploying capital towards those gym memberships, extract it onto something and deploy it to something with maximum impact to ensure that they're focusing on the areas which do have the largest impact. But also a good story that they came back with recently is that one of their major projects called the Bridge Project that they have had funded for a number of years was actually no longer getting funded, and they were able to take the impact reports produced through Social Suite, and they actually managed to re-secure a 7-figure sum to continue that particular program as well. So that sort of gives us a bit of a use case around a change maker or a service provider that is currently using Social Suite and has done for a number of years. I guess if we look on the flip side, and probably something that is known to a lot of people in this webinar, obviously being based within the UK, is the Guy's and St Thomas charity, which is obviously heavily linked with the NHS. So as a funder, they've got initial 5 themes that they're looking at deploying capital against. The first theme in particular is against childhood obesity. So they're deploying capital to close to 300 different organizations. And what they wanted to do is get that aggregated view of impact in line with metrics that they've developed across all of those 300 grantees. So what they're actually doing is deploying an instance of Social Suite with the metrics already preloaded, so the organization can build the capacity to actually collect the granular data and get that visibility of the services they're delivering internally. But then there's data that anonymously feeds back up to the GSTC main instance of Social Suite, and that way they can get that aggregated view of impact, but obviously they can't see the granular beneficiary information that's obviously due to data security and things like that as well. So hopefully that gives you a good bit of background as to sort of who we are, the areas that we work in, and a couple of used cases as well. I'm not too sure if you've got anything to build on that at this stage, Conway, or?
I just wanted to just on that last use case talking about there with Guy's and St Thomas's, having a limited view from a security and data protection perspective, obviously sitting within Salesforce, Salesforce is really focused on security and privacy and security settings and sharing and so on. And so I think just again, as I said in the beginning, Social Suite, being native to Salesforce, leverages all of that existing infrastructure within Salesforce. So any GDPR concerns you might have, any sort of rules around sharing within organizations, if you're dealing with funders, it leverages the existing infrastructure, as I said, within Salesforce. So those areas are all taken care of as part of the holistic kind of solution. If we're looking at a CRM and impact measurement solution like Social Suite sitting together on one platform, you know. So I know potentially you might have questions, okay, well, I'm using Salesforce already, you know, and we're very happy with that privacy and security settings in there. How does that impact if we're looking at a managed application like Social Suite that sits inside Salesforce? So it all leverages the same security data infrastructure. So that's all I really wanted to add on to that as well, if there were any concerns. So shall I go to the next one, Tom, or how do you want to proceed from here?
Yeah, you can flick across to the next slide.
There we go.
Yeah, that just sort of covers off on the YMCA. I think the next slide we can run through, that'll be the poverty stoplight. So this is quite an interesting project that we've been involved with for about 12 months now, and it's an organization based in Paraguay in South America called Fundación Paraguay. Essentially, they've developed a methodology called the poverty stoplight, and it's a 50-level indicator that essentially helps families self-assess where they sit at on the poverty scale in various different aspects across those 50 indicators. So they're using the mobile tablet, and they're going out to families in very remote rural locations, and they're actually in an interview style process going through this poverty stoplight methodology to essentially help the families bring themselves out of poverty. But because the data that's being collected on the tablets is also geomapped, what it allows the organization to see is areas of weakness, in particular indicators that they may need to divert particular services to. So it's not just from an individual family's perspective, but then it can be aggregated up a level to see from particular community levels as well. So that's, I guess, another use case that we're very, very excited to be involved with. Yeah, I think it might be a good time now just to go into a bit of a demonstration of the platform and just give an overview of the look and feel of Social Suite, and give you an overview of how the metrics sit in there and the different data structures, but then also go through a few of the dashboards to show you how intuitive and how they leverage off the Einstein Analytics platform through Salesforce as well. So I think I just need to change the screen share, Conway.
Yeah, me. There we go. We should have sharing rights now.
Perfect. So hopefully you can see my screen now.
Yeah.
Perfect. So as Conway mentioned, we're obviously built on the Salesforce platform, so we can inherit a lot of the data security architecture that sits within Salesforce as well. Doesn't necessarily mean you need an instance of Salesforce, but it does sit quite nicely within somebody's Salesforce instance. So along with that means that you can set certain permission access depending on your organizational structure. So if you've got program managers and you only want to see or let them see certain programs that are relevant to them, you can change those permission access sets as well. But for this demonstration purpose, although it's dummy data, we'll go through it as if we are the overarching main user, and we can see everything that sits within this organization as well. So the first section I'd like to sort of go through is the library section. So the first thing that organizations can do is actually build their metrics or their framework within Social Suite. Now, a number of organizations run various different programs, and they could have various different metrics to measure each of those programs. So you can build multiple tools or frameworks, whatever you'd like to call it, and that can sit then within your library. So when setting up your different programs and your different activities, you can simply then just attach the relevant tool or framework to help you measure that particular program as well. So if we just jump back to the home screen, what we can see here is a general overview of everything that we need to be aware of from a data collection perspective that sits within this organization. So I can see here, this running 37 programs. We're collecting data from just short of 5,000 beneficiaries. We can see there's currently over 550 surveys that are currently open, and then we can see the overall submission and completion rates. Now, there's quite a clever data structure that actually sits within Social Suite, where an organization can have various different programs they're running that sit at the top level. You'll notice then that everything changes. Now, activities, you can have a number of different activities that sit within each program. And then each activity can then be segregated and broken down into cohorts. So cohorts is simply just a way of segregating pools of people that are going through the same activity, collecting the same data from, but you would find or deem useful to, I guess, compare against at that dashboard level. So generally it's done at a geographical location, but in theory it could be different age groups, it could be whatever that you'd want. But it's worth noting that the framework or the set of metrics sits at the activity level. So if you've got common outcomes that you're looking at measuring across multiple different activities and multiple different programs, when you're at a dashboard level, and we'll go to in a bit more depth, you can obviously see the change over time from an individual's perspective, but then you can start to aggregate. You can compare one cohort to another. You can then compare outcomes across one activity to another. And then even higher up, you can compare one program to another. So you can really look at it from an organizational level, but you can also go and drill down to an individual family or an individual beneficiaries level to see their change over time as well. So if we open this particular activity, and in this case, it's a youth work readiness program, this is going to give us an overview of the framework or the data collection plan that's been used to measure across this youth program. So if we can see here that we've got all of the different outcomes that we're looking at measuring down the left-hand side. Now, each individual outcome then has a specific indicator in regards to how you're actually going to measure the overarching outcome. And then what are the list of questions that you're actually asking to get a rating on that overarching outcome. So from these tools that you've built within the library, you would simply just drag the relevant outcomes that you're wanting to measure into the framework builder. And then that will allow you to add these questions into the surveys. So although it's listed in this form here, all of the outcomes will just state in the survey as specific questions. But once you've determined what you're actually wanting to measure, you then need to determine who do you actually want to collect this data from, how do you want that data to be collected, but also over what time points do you want to collect that data as well. So this is a really strong benefit of Social Suite, is that you can actually automate the longitudinal data collection process, which is something that a lot of our organizations and a lot of customers we work with find it very, very hard to do. When using things like SurveyMonkey or paper-based surveys, you may only get one touch point because it's too hard to collect data from the same person over multiple time points. So all this can be configured and changed as per your program. In this instance, we can see as soon as a beneficiary is enrolled in this program, they immediately receive a pre-programmed survey. The system then waits 5 days. It goes out to collect a post-program survey. But then what it also does is it collects the data at a 6, a 12, and a 24-month follow-up. So what we're doing here is obviously we're capturing the pre and the post to get that initial impact and that initial change. But then has that actually stuck with the individual over the long term? And the programs that you delivered, is it sustainable with that individual? So by capturing these additional time points, just allows you to capture that longitudinal change over time to see if your initiatives are having that long-lasting effect as well. So this is configured to collect it via email, but let's say we're running a workshop as an example, and you might have that one-on-one touch point pre and post. You may collect the data using the mobile app on a one-on-one basis, but then 6, 12, and 24 months, you don't have that touch point with the beneficiary. So you may select to capture that data, via email or SMS, whatever method that you would find to be the most effective to capture that data as well. Now, you'll notice that it's not just capturing data from the beneficiary, but we're also capturing data from the teacher, the family member, and the case manager as well. And as I touched on briefly going through the different slides, this allows you then at a dashboard level to compare the data that you're capturing from the teacher in relation to that beneficiary. And if you can see an improvement over time from a beneficiary's perspective, and also the teacher thinks the same improvement has occurred, then it just helps validate that beneficiary data even more when going out and providing these impact reports as well. So essentially, once you've built the different programs, the activities, you've built the framework, it's then as simple as just enrolling your different contacts or beneficiaries into the relevant programs. So this is the one object or field that we share with the Salesforce CRM. Other organizations have connected the two systems with other case managements and CRMs, which is possible through various API functionalities. But essentially, this is the information that you have about the individual. So things like name, email address, contact numbers. It's also useful if you're able to capture additional demographics against that individual as well. So you can have a lot of different custom fields, but you can see here we're capturing things like gender, whether they're Aborigine, Torres Strait Islander, whether they're culture and linguistically diverse. These can yet again be very powerful at that dashboard level. So it allows you then to drill down and say, well, how do males compare to females across this whole activity or within this cohort? Or show me people that compare age 20 to 25 in comparison to 26 to 30 as an example. So any custom fields that you would find relevant, we're working with Scope, the disability provider. They have disability type as an example, so they can look at the impact across their programs by disability type. There's various different ways and you can use that as an advantage at that dashboarding level. But essentially, as soon as you've enrolled a contact into a data collection plan, they'll automatically start to receive the surveys at the relevant time points. Like any data collection, if any organization sat on this webinar has tried to collect data, obviously it's a hard task in getting 100%, and to have that visibility across who's actually submitted data, who do I need to collect the data from, is a very useful insight to have. So Social Suite has an evaluation manager that's inbuilt. So this allows the program manager to come into a specific cohort and also see not only all of the stakeholders, that owe you data, but it also shows you all the different time points that the data needs to be captured as well, and also whether it has been submitted or whether it hasn't. So if you look down the left-hand side, we can see all of the stakeholders that was data, and then we can see all the different time points on the chart here. So when it's got an egg timer, it simply means that it's expired and it hasn't been captured. So I could come in here and go, show me all of the expired surveys, and I can send out additional prompts. I can get on the phone, I can chase that data up manually. But once a survey has been submitted, it simply just ticks it off here as well. So I can just be aware of everything that has been submitted and hasn't been submitted from the data collection perspective, but I can also select particular data collection points, and then I can move that to different time points if somebody were to go on holiday or you need to change that for whatever reason. But essentially, this is just a tool to help you make sure you capture as much data as possible to ensure that the dashboards are statistically valid as well. So speaking of the dashboards, we'll dive into the analytics suite. As Conway has mentioned, we leverage from the Einstein Analytics platform. So as the data has been submitted in from these surveys, whether that be through the email links, the SMSs, whether it be through the mobile tablet, it's automatically populating into these real-time dashboards. So whether it be upper management, whether it be funders, whether it be board members, they can log into the analytics section and they can instantly see the impact that the organization is having across various different programs and sectors as well. So essentially, these dashboards can be configured at the click of a button from the organization, and they can be very, very customizable to represent data in various different ways. But for this demonstration process, we'll just go through a few different examples. So keeping the theme the same, when we looked at the Youth Work Readiness Program, this is a particular dashboard based around that. So if we look at these individual headings, these essentially are the outcomes that we were looking at measuring through that particular framework. And all the questions asked within the surveys have then been averaged to get an overarching rating for these outcomes. And we can then see the different time points that we've actually captured that data. So as looking at it as an overall activity for our career and educational planning, we can see the change over time from pre, post to the 6-month follow-up. And then we can start to drill down into individual cohorts. We can say, well, how does Collingwood, compare to that of Epping as an example? Or then we can use the additional demographic fields that we've overlaid, and we can say, well, show me how do females compare to males. And what this does, it just helps organizations drill down at that granular level and be able to slice and dice that data in an effective manner to be able to collate these impact reports that they need simply at a click of a button as well. So show me males that are, Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander, that are also, culturally and linguistically diverse. So as long as you're capturing those additional demographics against the individuals, can then be used at that dashboarding level as well. So that's one example. Another example I'd like to show is this SDG dashboard. A lot of organizations that we work with obviously measure impact in line with specific SDGs. And this dashboard is also quite useful because it captures not only outcome-driven impact data, but it also captures output-driven data. And what we mean by the outputs is things like, volunteering hours or, the total investment. So we can see that's being captured through the system, and it's also mapped against here. I mean, it's a map of Australia, but essentially it could be globally as well. And we can drill down and say, well, show me all of the impact, particularly in Western Australia as an example, and the dashboards will change accordingly. So that's a lot of the output-driven data at the top of that dashboard. But when we look further down, we can see the specific outcomes that have been tied back to the SDGs. So if we look at this example that people have reported experiencing difficulty meeting basic needs, such as food, clothing, shelter within the last 3 months, we can see from the data captured since 2015 that there's been an overall decrease of 14.77%, and that ties back to the no poverty SDG as well. And then we can drill down, in specific years, or it could be specific location, or even specific quarters as well. Whatever report we need, the data that we've been collecting is automatically been aggregating, and it allows us then to slice and dice that retrospective for the report you're trying to produce. And all of these dashboards that we're going through, they can be exported as an image, and that can be then used, as I said, internal purposes for showing staff members. It could be shown to board members. It could be used to support additional grant applications as well. This particular and final dashboard that I'll just run through gives a good perspective of another stakeholder aside from just the beneficiary. So we're looking at measuring the confidence in applying for management positions through this mentor and mentee program. Yet again, we can drill down into individual cohorts, or we can drill down into individual participants. But we'll look at this as an overall activity level. And we've got the baseline, we've got a 3, 6, and 9 month follow-up. And we can see that 17% of mentees pre-program felt that they were confident, as opposed to 3 months on, 75% actually felt they were confident post-program. So you can see the huge positive jump and impact in regards to that program that's been run there. But then also we're capturing the mentor's perspective about the mentees. And we can see here that mentors felt around 13% of the mentees were confident pre-program and around 72% post-program. So although it's not identical, it still gives a pretty accurate correlation and just helps paint that additional picture as well. So yeah, hopefully that gives you a good overview of Social Suite. I mean, in regards to funders and foundations, it's structured a bit differently in how the dashboards are aggregated of the impact, but from a service provider or somebody delivering the services, that gives you a good overview, of how Social Suite, you can design and build the metrics, you can go out and collect the data using the same platform, and then it automatically aggregates into the live dashboards to be able to produce the reports, and it keeps it all under one system. It ensures that rigor and process, and just ensures that best practice all of the time. And there's no anecdotal impact evidence through the platform. It's all factual, and you can back it up through raw hard data as well. So yeah, anything to add from your end, Conway? If not, I'm sort of happy to open it up if there's any questions.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Tom. I think that was great. I mean, I'm aware that you know, with the time constraint that we have today, that was a very high level kind of, you know, really trying to show as much of the solution as possible. But I you know, I see a lot of value in this. I think this kind of out of the box, what's available within Social Suite in terms of the dashboarding and the level that you can drill down is really powerful. And just the granularity that you can get to, and the ability to easily understand all of that, what could be otherwise seen as very complex data, and trying to sift through pages of reports, and you know, and I've seen with a number of organizations, and you know, in the organizations that we work with, economic change, how this is a huge challenge. You know, so being able to, at the click of a button, just have that visual data, but that's supported by real data and analytics behind, you know, all those really nice looking dashboards and graphs and everything that you have. It's really powerful, you know. So thank you for running us through that. I didn't want to jump in too much there. Just wanted you to be able to get through all of that. So I think it's really powerful. And as I said before you came on board, we're really excited to be able to work with you on bringing this to the UK market. I know you have some UK customers, but we really think that there's a huge opportunity for organizations to take advantage of this powerful solution, and we're glad to be a part of that. So thank you. And I think, you know, conscious of time, I think that's kind of where we'll end things off for today. So I just wanted to say thank you to those who've joined on the webinar today. Please feel free to contact Economic Change at any point as well. I did have a slide, I don't know what's happened to that, with my email address on it, but it's conway@economichange.co.uk, and be more than happy to pick up the conversation and get Tom involved as well, to kind of look more specifically at your organization and the areas where you might be struggling around, you know, impact management, impact measurement. You know, from our perspective, we do, as I mentioned at the beginning of the call, we do a lot of work around working with organizations to help them further refine their impact measurement framework if they have one in place already, or for a lot of organizations who don't actually have a structured theory of change in place. You know, we do a lot of work in that area, and then obviously, you know, we can bring Tom into the conversation. We can say, how do we work with a technology like Social Suite to get the most value out of all the efforts around the work that we might do with you in developing that framework. So please do contact us. We have recorded this webinar, so we'll be sending it out as well, so you can have it on file to have a look at again and see Tom's demo and look at some of the use cases. But at any point, please, we're more than happy to have a call, a face-to-face meeting with you as well. So thank you again for your time. I don't know, Tom, is there anything else you'd want to add to that?
Yeah, just to build on that, obviously, if different organizations have, you know, different requirements. So if it's of interest to please do reach out, and more than happy to have that one-on-one discussion and understand a bit more about the impact measurement from individual business perspective, and hopefully run through similar use cases and show you how the platform and how economic change could help with the metric side of things, and then streamline through the process and further the conversation from there. But yeah, I appreciate everybody's time today as well, and yeah, please do reach out if anything's of interest or you'd like to know more.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Tom, and thank you everyone on the webinar with us today. We hope you have a great day, and we'll speak to you soon, hopefully. I'm going to close it off now.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, cheers. Thank you.